Hello friends, welcome to AriserTalent. Today our topic of discussion is Biogeochemical Cycle. Biogeochemical Cycle. Okay, Biogeochemical Cycle. Before starting the topic, I want to tell you that Biosphere, we all know that Biosphere is Biosphere is made up of non-living components and living components, and they both are interdependent on each other for the energy and for the exchange of matter. Okay, so all the living things need some nutrients for their growth. So what are the nutrients? The nutrients are carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium and sulfur. Okay, so these are the main 8 nutrients on which all living things depend, means these are the nutrients which are needed by the living organisms. Okay, now how do they get these nutrients? They get these nutrients by the lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. Living organisms, or we can say living organisms, get these nutrients from lithosphere. In the lithosphere, mainly from the soil. Mainly soil. Okay, hydrosphere means from water and atmosphere means from the air. Okay, so thus we can say that living organisms get these essential nutrients from the lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. Okay, now what are the biogeochemicals? Biogeochemicals means the nutrients which are derived by the living organisms from the earth for their growth and metabolic activities. So these are biogeochemicals. These are the nutrients which are derived from the earth for their growth and metabolic activities for the living organisms. Thus we can say biogeochemicals. What are biogeochemicals? The nutrient element which are derived from the earth, okay, by living organisms, by living organisms for their growth and metabolic activities. Okay, so what are biogeochemicals? The nutrients which are derived from the earth for the growth and metabolic activities of the living organisms. They are known as biogeochemicals. Okay, and when these biogeochemicals are recycled, means they are exchanged again and again, then this is known as biogeochemical cycle. Now, what is biogeochemical cycle? Biogeochemical cycle means movement of the chemical or the nutrients from through the bio means life, from geo means earth, again and again. This is known as biogeochemical cycle. Means this is the process which continues from bio to geo. Okay, thus we can say the movement of nutrients, the movement of nutrients through living and non-living components of biosphere. Okay. So, as we know, the living and non-living thing components includes the biosphere, means biosphere is made up of living and non-living components, and the movement of nutrients through living and non-living components of biosphere is known as biogeochemical cycle. Okay, is called biogeochemical cycle. Okay, thus we can say the continuous movement of this chemical through the bio means life or geo means earth again and again, that is known as biogeochemical cycle. Okay, now what are the types of biogeochemical cycle? Biogeochemical cycle. Generally, biogeochemical cycle is of two types, gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. Gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. Okay. If we talk about the gaseous cycle, then in the gaseous cycle, reservoir for the nutrient elements are hydrosphere and atmosphere. Gaseous cycle, then reservoir for nutrient elements are hydrosphere and atmosphere. Okay, means what are the nutrient elements for the gaseous cycle? They are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. Okay, and we get these nutrient elements from the hydrosphere and atmosphere. Generally, the gaseous cycle is perfect cycle. It is a perfect cycle because the gases are in the continuation form, the cycle. They form a perfect cycle because they move continuously in the atmosphere and hydrosphere. They make the perfect cycle. So, what are the nutrient elements in the gaseous cycle? They are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. Okay, thus we can say this is the perfect and quick cycle. This is the perfect and quick cycle. Okay, if we talk about sedimentary cycle, then in the sedimentary cycle, reservoir for the nutrient elements are sediments of the earth. Reservoir of nutrient elements are sediments of earth Then what are the nutrient element for the sedimentary cycle? They are phosphorus, potassium, calcium and sulfur. Potassium, sulfur, calcium and phosphorus. Comparatively gaseous cycle, it is a slow cycle, it is less perfect cycle, because what happens once the sediments get into the reservoir pool, there are the chances they may be collected there or they come out from the reservoir pool after a long period of time. That's why this is the less perfect or slow process. Now, what are the aspects of nutrient cycle? We will discuss them now. Aspects of nutrient cycle. What are the aspects of nutrient cycle? Input of nutrient. First of all, it is input of nutrient. If we talk about input of nutrient, means ecosystem get the nutrients from the external environment, external sources, okay, and then it store them for the further biological processes. Input of nutrients means an ecosystem, thus we can say an ecosystem receives nutrients, or we can say nutrient element from the external sources. Okay, means input of nutrient means ecosystem receives nutrient from the external sources. Okay, then it stores them for the further biological processes. It stores them for further use in biological processes. Okay, another aspect of nutrient cycle is output of nutrient. If we talk about output of nutrient, mean nutrient can move out of the ecosystem and then they can involve or they can move into the another ecosystem. Nutrients can move out of the ecosystem and can enter or they can take part in another ecosystem and may take part or may involve in another ecosystem. Okay, so these are the two main aspects of nutrient cycle, like input of nutrient, output of nutrient, and another is internal nutrient cycle. Internal nutrient cycle. As we are talking, internal nutrient cycle means internal, it is going on or it is proceeding inside the soil. As we all know that soil is a reservoir of nutrient elements. What happened there? Then plants absorb these nutrients for their growth and other activities. Okay, once the plant get died or the vegetative part fall off on the ground, then they get decomposed by the decomposers like bacteria and fungi. Then when they part are decomposed, then these nutrients get dissolved or that mixed with the soil, and thus we know it internal nutrient cycle. Okay, thus we can say soil is reservoir of nutrient. Okay, plants absorb absorb nutrients from soil. Okay, they are absorbing nutrient from the soil. Now, when plant get died or fall off of or there is a fall of any vegetative part, or there is fall of any vegetative part, okay, or inside, if we talk about inside the soil, then if the plants died, then roots are there in the soil, then these roots are decomposed by bacteria and fungi. Okay, so we can say when plant get died or there is fall of any vegetative part, then they get decomposed or they are decomposed, we can say then they are decomposed by decomposer. What are the decomposers there? Bacteria and fungi. Okay, then they are decomposed by decomposers like bacteria and fungi, and nutrients get mixed with soil. Okay, so we can say that nutrients are regenerated in the soil. Thus, nutrients are regenerated in the soil. Okay, so there is a perfect balance in the soil by plants are absorbing nutrients, and again the nutrients are made by the decomposed of these vegetative parts, and then we can say that there is a regeneration of nutrients inside the soil. This is why it is known as internal nutrient cycle. Okay, so what are the aspects of nutrient cycle? Input of nutrients, output of nutrients, and internal nutrient cycle. Now we will discuss about the different cycles. First of all, we will discuss about hydro cycle. Now our next topic of discussion is water or hydrobiological cycle. As we all know, water is very important component or very important element for the living beings. It plays an important role in water cycle and important role in the ecosystem. Okay, so thus we can say that there are the continuous exchange of water between the air, land and all the living organisms. So our next topic is water or hydrobiological cycle. Okay, water or hydrobiological cycle. If we talk about this water cycle, then we all know that there is a continuous exchange of water between the air, land and all the living organisms. Okay, so this plays an important role in the ecosystem, and there are two cycles. Generally, it includes two water cycles, that are global water cycle. There are two types of hydrobiological cycles. One is global water cycle. This is the larger water cycle which do not include any living component, and another is water biological Okay, thus we can say another one is water biological cycle, or we can say biological water cycle. Even you can say biological water cycle because it includes all the living organisms. Biological water cycle. It includes living organisms. If we talk about global water cycle, what happens in global water cycle? When the sun heats fall on the water reservoirs. Okay, suppose here it is sea and river. Okay, when the sun's heat fall on this water reservoirs, then water get evaporated and then it forms clouds in the atmosphere. When the sun's heat or sunlight falls on the water reservoir, then the water get evaporated and then it forms cloud in the sky. Okay, so it is getting evaporation of water, and once they go up in the atmosphere, these water drops contains and then they form the clouds. The water drops condense and forms clouds. Okay, when the cloud cannot hold the water droplets many for the long time, then it fall on the earth as rain. It falls as rain. Okay, this rainwater may directly fall on the sea or river, or once it fall on the land, then some water is absorbed by the soil and some water gets mixed with the river and then it goes to the sea. Okay, so this is generally this process is known as global water cycle. So this is global water cycle. Okay, in the global water cycle, when the sun's heat falls on the water reservoirs, means sunlight falls on the water reservoir, then the water get evaporated and goes up in the atmosphere and it condenses and forms clouds. When the clouds become heavy, they cannot hold the water, then this water fall on the earth as rain or sometime as snow. Okay. Now what about the biological water cycle? As it includes living components, then whatever the water is here, whatever the water is found on the land in the form of rivers or in the form of soil water, then that water is absorbed or contained by the living organisms like plants and animals. Okay. These are the plants, okay, which absorb water from the soil. Here they absorb water, from soil. Okay, how do they absorb? They have roots and thus they absorb water from the soil. Thus they release the water in the atmosphere in the form of vapor by the process of transpiration. Okay, then they release the water in the form of water vapor, and again this water vapor goes up into the atmosphere and form clouds, and again the clouds cannot hold the water and they throw the water in the form of rain. Okay, same happens with the animals. Animals take the water from the water reservoirs, okay, or from the plant like food, and then they release the water in the form of sweat or by the respiration. By the respiration, they release water vapor into the air, and this water vapor goes up and forms cloud, and again this water falls on the earth in the form of rain. Okay, so thus we can say in the biological water cycle, it includes the living organisms, and the living organisms absorb water from the soil, and they take the water from the water reservoirs, and then they release the water into the environment or in the atmosphere in the form of plants release the water vapor in the form of water vapor by the process of transpiration. Okay, and animals release the water in the form of water vapor by the respiration or as the sweat, that they get mixed with the air and then they condense and they form the cloud. So this is biological water cycle. This is known as biological water cycle. So thus we can say in the global water cycle, water gets evaporated and convert into water vapor. Okay, then this water vapor get condensed and form clouds. Okay, then these clouds cannot hold the water for a long time, and then this water falls on the earth in the form of rain and again get mixed with the rivers and in the sea. So when the water converts into the water vapor, this process is known as evaporation, and it is generally done by sun heat. Okay, and water vapor condense and convert into the clouds. This process is known as condensation. Okay, so water vapor converts into the clouds, form the clouds by the process of condensation, and by the precipitation it forms rain. Okay, and this rainwater again goes into the water reservoir. Okay, now if we talk about the biological water cycle, then in the biological water cycle, as it contains living components, thus we can see if we talk about plants. Okay, then plants release water vapor in the form by the process of transpiration. Water vapor again this water vapor condense and form clouds. Okay, then these clouds cannot hold the water, and then this water falls on the earth in the form of rain, and then when this rainwater is absorbed by the soil or it goes into the water reservoir, it is absorbed by the plants. It is absorbed by the plants. Okay, and then the water cycle completes in the form of biological water cycle. This process is known as transpiration. Okay, by the transpiration it releases water vapor, and by condensation it forms cloud, and then by the precipitation it forms rain. If we talk about animals, then animals release water in the form of sweat or by the respiration. This we can say by respiration. Water vapor, again it forms clouds, and we get rain from the cloud, and then this water is absorbed by the animals, or this water is intake by the animals from the water reservoirs. Okay. So, this is the complete process of global water cycle and biological water cycle. Thank you.